Good afternoon, everyone. We will get started at 2. I'm going to put the slides up here in just a moment. So just stay tight and we will get back. It's going to be quiet. I need to figure out how to get audio on this so we can listen to music during the quiet time, but I'll see if I can figure that out, but we will get started at 2. Okay, I'm gonna try and play some music, see if it works. If it is really not good, I need to get some music so you guys always know that we're always at least here, but not paying attention yet. So hopefully this works. No, is that ridiculous? It's super boring when there's no music. So we're gonna try something new. Well, because it was like quiet. That's what we'll probably put in next thought. Perfect. We're starting to record again. Awesome. So we've never really done this training before, but the deal is we also usually do new employee ABVMs, but due to everything, we like to have them in person. Obviously, we've been crazy with COVID and everything else in our office and applications, so we really haven't had a chance to do new employee ABVMs. We're going to do one in January, but we thought this would be a good refresher course for verification because I know you do it once a year, or if you are new, this could just help you along with that process. So again, right now, the guidance that we have from USDA, and that's kind of why we did this one very last minute, is we were waiting to see about verification to do it or not from USDA. We haven't heard anything, so we're going to say go ahead with the process. So that's why we decided to do this training, just to make sure that if you need a refresher, or if you are new, this will hopefully help with the verification process, so you can go ahead and get started with that now. Let me see. Try and move my slides. Here we go. Okay, so again, we put this on every training, but we give you the information of who you need to call. If you have questions about verification, how to do the process, the first person you should contact is your consultant. That is located on C-3. You just look for the county if you are not familiar, and the phone number, call the phone number in there. Pat Gower retired. Her last day, I believe, was Friday. And Sandy Bullard has taken her position, and she is with us now. Her number is the same as Pat's was. So if Pat was your consultant, Sandy had been in Poto and Worcester, so she is very familiar with schools. She was out of school for several years, so I'm pretty sure she can help you with the verification question. But if not, you can call any of the other consultants. You can call up to the state office. We can help you out here. And then again, we have this NSLP email address that we use for all other entities. But if you want to just ask a question, you can always send it there as well. And I do have with me today, I have Becky Gray, who everybody loves and adores. She's in here. She's helping actually answer questions. Leanne is in here. Kathy Cook is in here, and Rhonda Stevenson is in here today. So they're all helping out in here. So if you have any questions or even just want to say hi, you can tap that in the chat and they'll either respond. I had chat issues last training that we did, so hopefully you can respond. Again, you want to check any reporting dates. We have them listed on page C-5. Also, if you have the calendar, we have the dates in there as well. Another thing is especially if you're new, acronyms, you may want to go to the acronyms page on page C6. because we do in child nutrition have our own lingo. So before you get started with verification, one thing that you need to have, which luckily with cell phones and stuff now, it's not quite a bit of an issue, but you do need to provide a free phone number that households can call for assistance with the verification process. So the free number must include, it must be included in the written notice to households. So you can have a you can let them know they can collect calls if need be. If everybody in your territory, like in your school district, it's all a local number, then that's fine as well. But it is something that, and again, with cell phones, you can pretty much call anybody from any number, and it's usually free of charge. So these are the verification requirements. So you use your information from October 1. So you select applications on the number of new current year applications that you have on file as of October 1. This is not for any carryover applications. This is just for new current applications that you have received from as of October 1st. Now, another thing is when you verify the number of, and we'll go through all this too, but the number that you verify has to be, you cannot do any more or less than the sample size that you chose. So if based on your district and the number of application you have as October 1, you have to pull, say, 3 applications. You cannot verify 4 and you cannot verify 2. You can only verify the exact number that you are required to pull. And then a reminder about the verification deadline is November 15th. And that's the same every year, is November 15th. It used to be years before my time, December 15th, but they changed it to November 15th. So make sure you realize this whole process has to be done by then. So what students are exempt from verification? So if they qualify for direct cert, if they're included in your eligible homeless, migrant, and runaway list, or if they're enrolled in a federally funded Head Start, you do not verify. And remember, just a little remember that meals can be claimed for 3-year-olds without disabilities, but they cannot be counted in your eligibles because they are not enrolled in your class. Or in your district, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say class. So who else is exempt from verification? What students? So if you are students residing in an RCCI, it does not mean day students. You just have to be an RCCI. You don't have to participate. And then any sites participating in provision 1, 2, 3, or CEP in a non-base year. So if you are, say, a provision 2, and this is your base year, you still have to do verification this year. You are not exempt. When you're in a non-base year, when you're in a base year, you have to do it. When you're in a non-base year is when you do not take applications. So just something I wanted to point out, I was talking to some of the consultants, and even when I was in the field, make sure you double check the number of applications your system pulls for verification. We find a lot of issues with this. A lot of times your system may pull the wrong number. So then you'll have a finding on your administrative review due to you pulled too many or too few based on your system. So again, check the system generated reports, have the list for applications and rosters. The total should be the same. But something else I just wanted to, and I'll bring it up again when we talk about, we're not talking about low income today, but I did want you to be aware. I had a consultant tell me that they got a phone call that the low income report generated in a software doesn't count the virtually enrolled, the ones that like they're enrolled in your school, but they're on campus. So just make sure that if a student is in your district and they're attending virtually this year due to COVID, that is an option for virtual enrolled. So just, you wanna make sure your system pulls that. I don't remember what system she said was doing that, but again, I just wanted to make you aware of this. So, but people are not double checking their systems. So you just need to make sure, because a lot of systems, they're pulling the wrong number of applications for verification. So there are 3 verification methods, and we're going to talk about all 3 of them. The most common and that we call, I don't want to say the normal one, but the one that's mostly used is the standard sample size. there are certain instances where you can do alternate 1 or alternate 2, but you are required to do standard sample unless you have an option to do alternate 1 random and alternate 2, which is focused. And we'll talk about what those are and how you can possibly do alternate 1 or alternate 2. So the most common is the standard sample size. So what you do is on October 1st, you pull 3% of your applications. So if you have 100 applications, you pull 3% of those. Now those applications that you pull need to be error-prone applications. And that's what we were talking about, the error-prone scale. And we'll talk more about what error-prone is. So standard sample size, you take all your applications as of October 1st, you pull 3% to get your number of how many applications you have to pull for verification. So say the number is 3 that you have to pull. When you pull those 3 applications, you have to pull from what we call error-prone applications. And if you don't have enough error-prone applications, then then after that, so say you have only 2 error-prone applications, what you would do for the third one is you would pull a random application out of your stack of those that can be verified. You do have to fulfill the 3% requirement. So what an error-prone application is if it's within income around $1,200 or below the annual income scale, or if you're going by monthly, it's $100 below the monthly scale. The reason they call it error-prone is because there is a chance that there's an error that the parent maybe wrote down their information incorrectly, and it could make them not be what they technically are. So say they were reduced and maybe they should be paid, or maybe they were free because they were so close to that line that they would be reduced. Again, the error-prone scale is in 2021 documents, and it says error-prone eligibility FY21. And also check your system, because a lot of you I know most of you are using a system, unless you're just so small you don't use it for verification. But a lot of times they will pull your error-prone for you. So this is just an example of your error-prone. So if you have a family of 4 and your annual income is between $32,275 and $33,375 for free benefits, that is where your error-prone would be. So if you had an application that had $32,277 for a family of 4, then that would be an error-prone application, because the amount is in between the $32,275 and $33,475. And then an example of an error-prone reduced application is if you have a family of 4 and the monthly income is $3,870 and between $3,970 and $970. So if you pulled an application for being error-prone, it would for this example, it would say $3,878. It would be an error-prone application because it's within those 2 amounts that are listed up here. So just make sure that you pull what a lot of people do, and you can kind of tell because you're like, when you're approving applications, if you're doing it by hand, you're like, oh, wow, they barely made it. That's usually how you know it's an error-prone application. Some people, if you're really small, what they tend to do is whenever they're approving them, that's when they start flagging them for error-prone, which makes it a lot easier. Or they have a file that's just their error-prone applications. But a lot of times your system will pull this information. So you do have a chance to use alternate 1 or alternate 2, but the only way that you can do that is if you have a non-response rate of 20%, which I don't like the wording on how USDA does this. We like to be positive here at the State Department of Education, and we say if you have an 80% response rate. So if you had 10 applications and you got 8 of them back, you would have an 80% response rate. As long as your response rate is 80% or more, you don't have to do the standard sample. You can do alternate 1 or alternate 2. And if you're like I had one school that had 1 application to pull. They only had 2 error-prone applications. So like we keep on pulling the same 2 every year. They just like rotated between the 2 because they're the only error-prone applications they had. If that family is responding to you, then the next year you can do alternate 1 or alternate 2 instead of doing this. Now, if you are going to do anything alternate 1 or alternate 2, we do say that you need to keep, we have a form on page E71, and that's what you would do from, so if this year, in order to know if you can do alternate one or alternate new, it's based on last year's information, your last year response. So this year, what you should do is on E71, we have a piece of paper and it lets you know how many that you pulled for verification, how many responded to your verification, and that lets you know what your percentage is. And you make sure you keep it in your file because we'll ask to see this if you decide to do alternate one or alternate two. Now, this is based on a response. This is not based on if they changed or if they stayed the same when they did respond to verification. If they call you and say, we no longer qualify for benefits, they responded to you. If you receive a response, not if they changed, it's just if they responded to verification. So alternate one, what that is you take, and most, I'm going to use it for most of the state, is if you would take it's the same as standard sample, you take 3% of all your applications as of October 1. But when you take the 3%, so say you have to do 3, that's the number it pulls, you pull from any application. You just put all your applications in a pile and you pull 3 at random out of all the applications applicable for verification. That's what alternate one is. So the standard sample is you pull 3%, but you have to first pull from error-prone applications. And then after that, if you don't have enough, then you can pull randomly. But alternate one is if you have 3% as of October 1, you pull at random from all applications. So it is really nice if you only have, again, 1 or 2 error-prone applications and the only amount you're supposed to pull is 1 or 2. Instead of pulling the same family every year, this gives you a chance to pull somebody else. So the next one is alternate 2. And this, so if you notice with standard sample, I'll explain more of what this is, but standard sample, alternate 1, you pull 3%. Focused alternate, you pull a total of 1.5%. So again, you take all of your applications as of October 1 and you pull 1%, and they have to be from error prone. And then you take 0.5% and you pull from your ones with case numbers on them. So instead of doing 3%, you end up doing 1.5%. So if you end up you could use it at any school size. We always used to think when I first started, it's for your big schools, but it's really for any school size. So if you normally have to pull say 10, you may have to pull 5 instead. You'll pull half. But again, the 1% has to be from error prone. Plus you do 0.5%, and they have to be an application with case number, which would be like SNAP or TANF or FITBUR. So this year, it does get very confusing, especially with alternate 2. We did provide, this is a chart, this is what it looks like, and it's on page E36 in the eligibility manual. So with the alternate 2, we had some confusion the way it was written. So we pulled this straight from USDA, and it's a lot easier to read this way, but it is 1.5% for alternate 2, and it is still the 3% for alternate 1, but you just pull from a random selection. So once you start pulling for your application, so you remember you use the numbers from October 1 for your applications. So once you pull your applications, you'll do what we call a confirmation review. So what a confirmation review is, it's only for those that you're verifying. So if you pull 3 applications for verification, you have to verify the income on those applications is correct. So what we say is, it's very common. We got this question a lot during ABVM, so I was trying to clarify it. But you do need to have somebody other than the person who did the initial eligibility to confirm or to verify that the income on that application is correct. So a lot of times the determining official and the verifying official is the same person, but the person confirming that you did the application correctly needs to be somebody else. So essentially, again, one person approves and someone else needs to confirm the application was approved correctly. And then again, it's only during verification. This is not for every application. This is for verification only. So during the confirmation review, if a correct eligibility determination was made, meaning there's no changes, it was all done correctly, then you go ahead with verification. If you do find any errors where the application that you pulled, it was not, the information on the application was not approved correctly, then you would go to page E38 or contact your consultant or contact our office, and it depends on the outcome of what it is with the application. So you pull your applications and then you next do the confirmation review before you send out the letter. Now, there is a confirmation review waiver. So if your district uses a computer software program to approve your family size and income applications, you can contact your consultant to get a waiver. But you have to contact your consultant, and you have to do this every single year. I will tell you, when I was in the field, and most of the consultants I've talked to, they will not approve a waiver for this. And the reason being is I remember when I first started, we had a district who their computer system was approving wrong. Like it flip-flopped the every 2 weeks and twice a month. So those applications that were approved that way were incorrect in the system because the system approved it wrong. But also the information in your computer system is only as good as the person putting it in. And I know with me, there's several times I've been out of review and I get my numbers flip-flopped around where I'm like, I don't understand how they approved it this way. And I'm like, oh yeah, now I see how they did it. So a lot of them I know will not give you the waiver, but just talk to your consultant if you're interested. You do, again, have to have, your consultant is the only one that can approve you for a waiver. So when I was in the field, no one ever asked me for a waiver, but I yet had no schools, every school waived it. They didn't do a confirmation review, but yet no school ever contacted me to get this waived. So again, if you want to, because what you're stating is your computer software is efficient enough that they're all approved correctly. So again, make sure you contact your consultant if you're wanting that waiver. USDA does allow a substitution of any of your original applications that are pulled for verification. You can pull up to 5% and replace it with another error-prone application. The one thing with this process, so when you pull your 3% and say your number comes out to 2.25, you round up. You have to do 3 applications. Now, when you do say, for instance, in this example, you use rounding rules. So if you have 5 applications and you multiply it by 5% and you get 0.25, you cannot decline any applications because you fall under that one application. So you cannot round up. So unfortunately, if you have to pull less than 5 applications, you won't be able to decline up to 5%. Now, there could be a reason for declining if a district believes the household would be unable to satisfy the response to the verification request. But just a reminder, you cannot round up. You can't round up. So since it's under 1, you cannot decline any applications. So you do have to use our notification of verification form, and that is located on page E75 or E73. You do have to use this. This is the form you must use to send it to the parent. So this tells them the documentation they need and what you need for verification. Oops, got that one in there twice. So we have something called direct verification. So direct verification is not direct certification. What direct verification is when you pull an application and that application has a case number on it, but they're not showing up in your direct certification list, you can, on page 75 and 76, send this document to DHS, and then they will send it back to you to let you know if this person or this child does receive these benefits or not. It is not required, but I do highly suggest it if you pull an application with the case number on it, because you have double the chance of somebody responding to that verification application. So if instead of just sending it to the parent saying we need your income, you can, or your case number, you can send it to them and to the state agency, and hopefully one of them will respond back to you. Now, we get this question too. So say you have a child and maybe it's a case number, maybe it's not a case number, and then during verification process, this child ends up on the direct certification list. What do you do? At that point, we say if they show up on the direct cert list, make a copy of that where their name shows up and just attach it to it. And we say that that is a response since they finally showed up on the list and you do not need anything from the parent. Because that has happened, and it seems to have happened quite a bit, that someone did not show up on the direct certification list, but then later ends up on the direct cert. So if a household does not respond to your verification notice, you are required to make at least one other attempt. Now, we do stress this a lot, but you need to maintain all your documentation for your verification process. You are allowed, and I think I've only heard of one school, but you are allowed to contract with a third-party entity to do your follow-ups if you choose to do so. And if you're a big district, it makes a lot of sense to do that because you have to pull a lot of applications. Any questions thus far? Perfect. And we'll answer some too at the very end, and we'll talk more about all this. So adverse action. So if they do not reply, or if their status does change, you do need to do an adverse action. And you do have to use our form on page E77. You do have to give them 10 written calendar days until you can change the status. So any result or adverse action notice, it would include a change in the status, the reason for the change, the right to appeal. It gives them appeal procedures, the right to reapply for benefits. And then if you do have somebody that you send a letter to and they're going to say go from free to paid, and then they contact and they have an issue and it goes to appeal, then you give them the benefit, the free benefit until there's been something made by the hearing official. And your hearing official, if you don't know who that is, it is located in your application and agreement online. You put in there, a lot of times it's the superintendent, but just if you don't know who your hearing official is, they are located in the application and agreement. Is it under the policy? I think it's under the policy, but I'm not 100% sure. It's one of the top two. So the completion of verification. So record all of your verification activities, all the dates, keep copies of all the letters that you send out. And then any changes resulting from verification must be extended to all children in that household. And just to verify again that the entire verification process must be completed by November 15th. And I give in here, even in the manual, there's a timeline, but I'll go over a suggested timeline, but the entire process has to be completely finished by November 15th. And then you do have to do a verification summary report, and all districts, regardless if you actually did verification or not, must do this report. And in November, we have a verification summary report training that we'll do. It'll be just like this, a little 1 hour just to go over the report so you know how to fill it out correctly. So what happens if a parent doesn't respond, but they end up giving you like another application, which is very common. So for that year, so if it's for this year and a parent does not send in their verification information, but then like in December, you get another application from them, you cannot change their benefits until they give you verification documentation that you asked for in October. So, and it's good for the whole year. Like they cannot change their status unless they give you verification documentation for this entire fiscal year. Now, next year, you can take an application at face value unless they get pulled for verification again and the same thing. But if someone does not, if they just send an application, they have to give you verification documentation before you can change their eligibility status for this fiscal year. So one other thing that we have that we say to use with caution is we do have a for cause verification. You can verify anybody at any time for cause. It's just if you believe the information on the application is invalid. We do state to be very careful because we don't want it to look like you're discriminating against somebody by doing this. And if you do verify for cause, it has to be outside of your verification pool. So if you have to pull 3 applications, but you have one that you want to do for cause, then that would be a 4th application that you are verifying. You don't have to tell them it's for cause, you just send them the same information, but you are allowed to verify for cause. And the same, again, the procedures are as normal verification. So we're gonna do a quick recap. You start the verification on or after October 1st. And the reason, so what I say you start the process, now you have to pull the number of from the applications you have on file as of October 1st. But the reason you may want to start it, say on October 2nd, 3rd, you may want to start it today. And the reason I state that is because when we get the, and I don't know if the wave is up, I know the wave's been up and down, but we get the numbers from, we get the information from DHS on the 1st. So usually by the 2nd, the matches have been made. So I have suggested to like my old territory is you may not want to pull, you may want to pull your direct certification list before you start verification, but you would pull your list on October 2nd. So, but the number that you use for applications is the number of applications you have on file as of October 1st. A second notice is required if there is no response. And again, the entire process must be completed by November 15th. Now we do have a timeline in our training manual, a suggested one, and it is on page E44, but this is mine for like this year's, since we're doing this training right now, that you may want to pull your DC list, then pull applications for verification and send out the first letter, say as of today. And then you would put on there when you want your first request due, and you can have it due to you say, I just had October 19th, because you are required to send a second notice. So if you don't get anything, say by the 19th, you would send out your second notice the next day on the 20th. And then you want that second request due by November 3rd. And then you would send out if you have no response, because if you did have any changes, you can send out the adverse action letter at any time you get a response. But if you get no response, then on November 5th, you would send out the letter, which I'd always say November 5th, send out the letter if you get no response, because that gives them 10 calendar days to change the benefits. And then that way, if you had to change the benefits, then your verification has been completed by November 15th. Because again, the entire process, it can't be like you give the parent till November 15th, because then you have to give them 10 additional days if they didn't respond. And then after verification is completed, you will have your verification report. And again, all schools must complete the verification report in CARS. And we will do a verification report Zoom training on November 18th. And that information is listed in the training link under CARS, other documents, training upcoming. So that's a brief overview of verification. I know you do it once a year, or if you're new, you've never done it. So it's a very quick process. We're here to answer some questions. So we will be here. Let's see, we did pretty good. Yeah, 30 minutes. I knew it wouldn't be a long one, but we still wanted to have this training to help out, especially if you're new. Okay. We will be sending certificates out for this training. It'll be a 1-hour certificate. So you will get that from us, and hopefully by the end of this week. It's been a little crazy. We have a lot of trainings this week. Also, I'll go ahead and make a plug for it. Dee sent out an email today about if you are if you need help filling out your summer feeding application. She's doing an online via Zoom application, how to fill it out. She'll be doing that tomorrow at 2, and she sent that out in CARS today. Yeah, we are not getting many questions. I hope that I hope it was a little bit of a refresher. If you're new, Yes, Lori. If none of your applications fall within the error-prone guidelines, you would just pull random applications. You do not have to do it in the alternate worksheet. And it's plausible that you may not have any. You may not have any at all, especially if you're small. Like I said, we had one that they only had one error-prone, and that poor person got selected for like 6 years in a row. The school was very happy to put somebody else out.
So you said we only count the applications that qualify for free and reduced, correct? We don't count the applications that qualify, that don't qualify.
Correct. I don't know if you heard Becky, but it's your free and reduced applications as of October 1st. Melinda, I'm not sure what guideline. If you're non-pricing and if you are non-pricing but you still collect applications, yes, you have to do verification. If you are a provision where you do not collect applications, that's the only time you do not have to do verification. Oh, slide 10. Let me go back to slide 10. Let me look what that is. So you're talking about the standard sample size does not match. Huh, I'll have to take a look at that. So LaDonna, where do you pull the number of applications as of October 1? You may check your family. You may check your software system to see if it can tell you. Oh, thanks, Melinda. I'm not actually I did use the slides from ABVM this year. It may be incorrect, but use the error-prone guidelines that we have. That was just an example. We may not have updated it for this year. So use the error-prone scale that is in CARS under 2021 documents. Make sure that is correct for sure. You can count your applications by hand, and a lot of schools do that as well. I'm not for sure the size of your district. You guys are asking some very good questions. But the big thing is a lot of people rely on their systems in general to pull the correct amount. And a lot of schools have gotten written up because the system is not pulling correctly. So just double check that. And like one of the consultants said, they had them pull a roster, and I think you can put in there like when their application was approved. So if you pull even that list, you can count it. You should be able to do a count. And again, you can also count by hand, depending on your school size. And we'll stay on here for a few more minutes. So if anybody else has any, to sign up for the summer food application training, it is via Zoom. It was sent out in CARS. So let me see. Give me just a second. I will pull the Zoom link, and that way you can copy and paste it to yours. Hold on. Give me just a second, and I'll give you that information. Let's see here. CARS. And it'll be tomorrow between 2 and 4. Oops, here. Doesn't always want to copy. There you go. Yes, the error-prone changes every year, like the guidelines, because it's always the 1,200 and 100, 1,200 annually and one monthly 100 monthly. So it always is based on the eligibility guideline skills, and that changes every year. So always, yes, check your system. Check our error prone scale and just check your system using that error prone scale. And yes, the Zoom link is on here for summer feeding. So if you want to copy, I believe you are able to copy and paste that, like maybe on a Word document, or if you even want to just click on it right now, you can go in and register. And then I believe a day before or an hour before, because it's already been a day before, they will send you a notice that you're registered. Very good. I'm going to put that link up there one more time just in case. We don't think it will take 2 hours to do the training, but she wanted to give enough time for questions and everything else. But this is to know how to fill out the SFSP application. So there is the web link. And again, this year, due verification, we have not received word otherwise. The other two trainings are going to go as is unless we get any information. The link is in the chat. Oh, you're not? Oh, hold on. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Thank you. I accidentally sent it to myself. There you go. Here we go. Sorry about that. Sent it to myself. I got to watch that periodically. So you can click on that link right there. But again, everything else is, unless we get guidance, and we could get guidance tomorrow saying don't do verification, but we wanted to go ahead and do this now. And again, the trainings for the verification report and the low income report will go on as is unless we get other information that we didn't know about. But thanks for letting me know, because sometimes I have a bad habit of replying to myself. And we'll just kind of stick around here for just a little bit. I'm going to put some more music on just because it makes it a lot better than hearing us ramble. But we'll stay on in case you have more questions. We'll stay on for about 5 more minutes. Gosh, I love the 80s. I heart 80s for sure. Well, Mike, because we've been in some trainings and they do music, so you know that they're here. Yeah, that's what I was like. I'm just using today my iPad, but I need to put some songs on mine because it won't let me like download iHeartRadio because it's. But I may ask going because of the fact that it's for training. It's not like I'm using it personally. But even for it's free. Like it's it seems to be. They didn't. I was hoping it was just more of a refresher. We've never done this. But the thing is they get credit hours. But yet, they can get refreshed and they'll do it. Because some people don't realize that. You're fine. What's going on? She can do random.
always send this there. Can you just find the name?
You enter Sarah.
Incest. I did it privately.
No place to hang out or wash it. And then I can't blame all on the sun. Oh, oh, we're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue. And then we'll take it higher. Oh, we're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue. And then we'll take it higher. Working so hard like a soldier. Can't afford a thing on TV. Deep in my heart, I abhor ya. Can't live with that king. Good God, we gonna rock down to Electric Avenue. And then we'll take it higher. Oh, we gonna rock down to Electric Avenue. And then we'll take it higher.